I'm a divorced dad, a regular guy, and I've been targeted by Catherine Pierce, the notorious ice queen from the Forbes list who everyone knows is completely insane. The smell of Friday night dinner still hung in the air. I was crouched in the entryway, tying my son Leo's sneakers, when he suddenly clutched my shirt and shrank back. His little voice trembled. "Daddy, that lady is watching us again." My head shot up. Across the way, behind the floor-to-ceiling window of the 18th floor penthouse, a flash of red vanished from sight. It had been 3 days. Ever since I'd added a woman named Catherine Pierce from the kindergarten parents' WhatsApp group, I'd see her standing there at this exact time every evening. At first, I thought it was a coincidence. Then, yesterday, I got a text from her. "You look better in an apron than you do in a boardroom." And I had my own damn fatherly instincts to blame for all of it. My name is Leo Parker. I'm 30, a pretty average software developer, divorced for 2 years, and raising my twins on my own. My son, Leo, and my daughter, Anna, are both 5 and in the same kindergarten class. My life runs like a well-written program, a predictable loop between the office, the grocery store, and home. But ever since Catherine Pierce showed up, my whole world has crashed. I'm stuck on a permanent blue screen of death. "Daddy, is that lady a bad person?" Leo tilted his head back, his big eyes filled with worry. I pulled him inside and shut the door, cutting off that suffocating gaze. I knelt down, tried to keep my voice light. "She's not a bad person, buddy. Maybe she just has a really good view from her apartment." Even I didn't buy that load of crap. It all started last week. The kindergarten teacher posted in the parent group about an upcoming family field day, encouraging everyone to sign up. I glanced at my calendar and saw I had a mandatory crunch session at work that day, so I typed a quick message to the group. "Hey, is anyone else unable to make it? Wondering if someone could keep an eye on my 2 for me." The chat went silent for a solid 30 seconds. Then I got a contact request from a user with a solid black profile picture. The name was Catherine Pierce. The message attached simply said, "I can." I didn't think much of it at the time. I figured it was just another mom from the class being nice. So I accepted the request and sent a "thank you" sticker. Her reply was 2 words, "Your address." A knot formed in my stomach. That was direct. I hesitated, not replying. A few minutes later, another message came through. "You live at 7 Riverside Towers, apartment 902, correct?" Every hair on the back of my neck stood straight up. I immediately typed back, "How do you know that? I live across from you." On instinct, I walked to the window and pulled back a corner of the curtain. Across the way, in a massive penthouse of the most expensive building in the complex, I could just make out the silhouette of a woman in a long red dress, holding a phone. She seemed to sense me watching. She lifted her phone slightly, as if in a toast. I yanked the curtains shut so fast, I nearly tore them down. This woman was a psycho. That was my first thought. I didn't dare reply again. I just silenced my phone. But that, I would soon learn, was only the beginning. From that day on, every evening when I cooked dinner, I could feel her eyes on me. She was like a ghost, appearing right on schedule. Then yesterday, she sent that message that made my skin crawl. "You look better in an apron than you do in a boardroom." When had I ever been in a boardroom with her? I'm a programmer. I barely see my own company's CEO, let alone negotiate with someone who lives in a penthouse that costs more than my entire family tree has ever earned. I set Leo up in the living room with his cartoons. Anna was still down for her nap. I walked into the kitchen and stared at the sink full of dirty dishes, my mind a mess. My phone buzzed again. It was her. It was a picture. A photo of my back as I was tying Leo's shoes in the entryway a few minutes ago. It was taken from her apartment, a little grainy from the distance, but it was unmistakably me. Beneath the photo was a line of text. "Good form. You have a strong core." My hand shook, and I almost dropped my phone into the sink. This wasn't just harassment anymore. This was surveillance. I couldn't take it. I dialed the number for building security. "Hello." "Yes, I need to file a complaint. The resident in the penthouse across the way, 1801, she's been spying on me and taking pictures." I tried to keep my voice calm, but the anger was rising. The receptionist's voice was cheerful. "Yes, sir, of course. Are you referring to Ms. Pearson, 1801? "Yes, that's her. I understand your frustration, sir. However, I'm afraid there's nothing we can do." "What do you mean you can't do anything? Isn't that your job?" My temper flared. Her voice took on a strained, apologetic tone. "Well, sir, you see, The entire development, including the building you live in, was developed by Ms. Pierce's company, and our security firm is also one of her subsidiaries. I was stunned into silence. The receptionist continued timidly. Also, Ms. Pierce left specific instructions that any request from a Mr. Leo Parker is to be considered top priority and fulfilled immediately. She said you are our highest level VIP. Me, Leo Parker, a VIP? I hung up, feeling like the world had tilted on its axis. I stared at Catherine Pierce's black profile icon on my phone, feeling like it wasn't an icon at all, but a black hole sucking me in. I decided I couldn't just let this happen. I took a deep breath, opened our chat, and typed letter by letter, "Ma'am, please stop what you're doing. This is seriously impacting my life. If you continue, I will call the police." I sent the message. It was met with deafening silence. I thought maybe my warning had worked. That night, Anna was a little fussy. I held her in my arms, walking slowly around her room, humming a tuneless lullaby. My rendition of Twinkle, Twinkle Little Star was so mangled, even I couldn't stand to listen to it. But Anna didn't seem to mind. She drifted off to sleep amidst my off-key warbling. I gently laid her in her bed, tucked her in, and slipped out of the room. Everything was normal, until the next morning. I was eating a piece of toast, watching the morning business report on TV. The anchor was practically buzzing with excitement. A corporate miracle. Catherine Pierce, the youngest woman in the top 10 of the Forbes list, has just led her Apex group in a shocking, multi-billion-dollar acquisition of Global Harmony Records, one of the world's 3 largest music labels. Sources close to the deal say the acquisition was prompted by Ms. Pierce happening upon a mysterious, epiphanic melody. She plans to mobilize the world's top musicians to recreate and analyze this divine composition at any cost. The toast fell out of my mouth and onto the table. Right on cue, my phone lit up. A new message from Catherine Pierce. "The tune you were humming is very unique. I've already put a team on it. Don't worry, you'll receive full compensation for the royalties." I stared at the message, then back at the TV, at Catherine Pierce's coolly beautiful face. I was screwed. I hadn't just stumbled into the path of a psycho. I'd stumbled into the path of a rich, powerful, terrifyingly efficient, and certifiably insane psycho. I stormed over to the window and threw open the curtains. Across the way, on the 18th floor, Catherine stood by her window, dressed in an impeccably tailored black pantsuit, a cup of coffee in her hand. When she saw me, she raised her cup in a silent toast, the corner of her mouth ticking up in the barest hint of smile. She looked so calm, so elegant, as if she hadn't just bought a global music empire, but had merely picked up a carton of milk from the corner store. And I was the last bottle of milk on the shelf, the one she decided was one of a kind and had to own. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I slammed the curtains shut and started pacing. What could I do? Call the cops? Tell them a billionaire bought a record label because I sang a bad version of Twinkle, Twinkle Little Star? They'd lock me up in a psych ward. Talk to her? I couldn't even get past her doorman. My life was a complete mess. I started making stupid mistakes in my code at work. During meetings, I felt my boss's eyes on me, as if he was thinking, "So, Parker, I hear you caught the eye of a billionaire?" Of course, that was all in my head. To them, I was still just Leo Parker, the unremarkable programmer who was losing his hair over project deadlines. This gap in knowledge, the fact that the readers knew, and I knew, but no one else in my world did, was pure agony. The woman shaking up the financial world on the news was, in the most bizarre way imaginable, taking over my life. On Wednesday, an urgent project kept me at the office all night. I dragged myself home the next morning, exhausted, my face covered in stubble and dark circles under my eyes. My mom had already picked up the kids, so the apartment was empty. I collapsed on the sofa, too tired to even shower. My phone buzzed. I swiped it open without even lifting my head. "Catherine, pulled an all-nighter?" My eyes shot open. Set both upights. "How did you know?" "Catherine, you have a certain shattered look about you right now." I find it appealing. My skin crawled as I scanned the room. "No cameras." How could she possibly know? Did she put a tracker on me? The next message cleared it up. It was a photo, taken from the street outside my office building. A black Maybach was parked by the curb, the window half down, revealing Catherine's profile. In the corner of the shot was my own back as I dragged my shattered self toward my apartment building. She had waited outside my office all night. This didn't feel like a courtship. It felt like being stalked by a predator at the top of the food chain. She had infinite patience and terrifying resources. My hands were shaking as I typed. What the hell do you want? Catherine, I want to get to know you. We're not a good match. I practically yelled the words into my phone. Compatibility can only be determined after in-depth analysis. Her replies were always so calm, so logical, delivered with an unshakable certainty. I was at a complete loss. I threw my phone aside and buried my head under a pillow. Just let the world end. Please. That weekend, I finally had a moment to breathe. I took the kids to the park to fly a kite. Anna got tired of running and insisted on being carried, while Leo happily devoured a cone of cotton candy, getting it all over his face. I savored the small moment of peace, almost forgetting about the omnipresent woman in red. On the way home, Anna mumbled from her car seat, "Daddy, I think my watercolor paints are running out." "No problem, sweetie," I said without thinking. "Daddy will take you to buy some new ones this weekend." It was such a normal, everyday exchange. The next day, Monday, I got a phone call from the director of the kindergarten. Her voice was so excited she was barely coherent. "Mr. Parker, this is the most incredible news. Our school has just received an enormous donation." My stomach dropped. A Ms. P, who wishes to remain anonymous, has donated, in your name, an entire state-of-the-art children's art wing, fully equipped with the finest imported German supplies, and enough art materials to last the entire school for the next 10 years. She said it was to support the artistic dreams of one Anna Parker. The world went a little fuzzy. The director was still gushing on the other end. "Mr. Parker, you're so modest. Anna is so lucky to have a father like you." Lucky? I was suffocating. After I hung up, I saw a new message from Catherine on my phone. Anna's artistic talent should not be stifled. I've arranged for the world's leading child art prodigy tutors to be available for her for one-on-one sessions whenever she's ready. I replied, "She's 5. All she wanted was a new box of crayons." Catherine, you need to think bigger. Don't let your financial limitations stifle your child's imagination. Financial limitations? I make a decent salary for a developer in this city. Raising 2 kids, it's not like we're rolling in it, but we're comfortable. But to her, my entire net worth was probably less than the spare change in her sofa cushions. The feeling of being crushed by the sheer weight of her money was worse than the surveillance. That night, Anna was dawdling over her homework, just staring into space. I prodded her a few times, then finally lost my patience and put on my stern dad voice. "Anna Parker, if you don't start writing this instant, you're going to get a timeout." It was our usual empty threat. Anna stuck her tongue out, then obediently picked up her pencil and started writing. I watched her little head bent over her workbook, a mixture of frustration and affection swelling in my chest. Everything was normal, until the next day, when a man in a black suit and sunglasses knocked on my door. He was holding an elegant velvet box. "Mr. Parker, this is a gift from Ms. Pierce." I eyed him suspiciously. "What is it?" The bodyguard opened the box with a deadpan expression. Nestled inside, on a bed of silk, was a small writing crop, encrusted with pink diamonds. The handle was inlaid with 2 letters spelled out in smaller diamonds. LP. Leo Parker. My brain shut down for a full 3 seconds. The bodyguard's earpiece crackled, and he handed it to me. I took it with a trembling hand and put it in my ear. Catherine's cool voice, now laced with a bizarre hint of excitement, echoed in my head. "You're very sexy when you're being stern. I thought this might come in handy. Somebody help me. I'm just a normal dad who wants his daughter to get into a good college." I slammed the door in the bodyguard's face, leaving him standing there holding a diamond-encrusted writing crop. I leaned against the door, my heart hammering against my ribs. This was beyond anything I could comprehend. What kind of normal person gives someone this as a gift? I grabbed my phone and furiously typed a message. "Catherine, are you completely insane?" This time, she replied almost instantly, with a single question mark. I felt like I'd punched a pillow. She genuinely didn't see anything wrong with her actions. In her world, this was probably just a unique way of showing affection. I deleted my angry text and tried again. "Please take your gift back. I don't need it. Catherine, You don't like the color? I could have him remake it with blue diamonds. Or black. I could feel my blood pressure rising. It's not about the color. Ms. Pierce, can we please meet and talk face to face? I think there's been a massive misunderstanding between us. I had to be proactive. I couldn't let her control the narrative anymore. Fine, she replied. Commonplace. You decide. I was the one left stunned. She agreed that easily. I chose a coffee shop near my office for lunch the next day. I picked a crowded place on purpose, figuring she couldn't pull any crazy stunts with so many people around. The next day, I arrived half an hour early. I wore my nicest button-down shirt, my hair combed perfectly. It felt less like a negotiation and more like a job interview where I was the one about to be judged. 5 minutes before our meeting time, the door to the coffee shop opened. Catherine Pierce walked in. She wasn't wearing her signature red dress. Instead, she had on a sharp, white pantsuit, her long hair pulled back in an elegant twist. Her face was a mask of cool indifference, but the moment she entered, the entire cafe seemed to fall silent. Every eye was drawn to her. She walked directly to my table and sat down. Leo, she said. Her voice was the same as on the earpiece, cool and devoid of warmth. Ms. Pierce. I nervously clenched my fists under the table. She studied me, her gaze like a CT scanner, analyzing me from the inside out. You're more vivid. In person, she concluded after a moment, a strange assessment. Ms. Pierce, I asked you here today because I wanted to. I know, she cut me off. You want me to stop harassing you. I let out a breath of relief. At least she understood. Yes, your actions have had a serious impact on my life. I'm just a normal guy who wants to live a normal life. Catherine looked at me, and for the first time, a flicker of genuine confusion crossed her face. I don't understand. I'm helping you. Your daughter's school, your lullaby. Are these things not good? That's different. I said, my voice rising. You're just throwing money at everything. I don't need it. My daughter doesn't need it. She wants her dad to take her to the store to buy a new box of crayons, not an entire art wing donated in my name. Do you get that? Catherine fell silent. She looked down at the porcelain cup in front of her, her long fingers tracing the rim. After a long moment, she looked up, her eyes filled with a curiosity I couldn't decipher. When I was 5, my father gave me a company. He said it was his way of loving me. Money is the most direct, most efficient way to express emotion. Is it not? I was speechless. Looking at her blank, unreadable face, I suddenly understood. She wasn't a pervert or a psycho. She just didn't get it. In the world she grew up in, there was no warmth, no companionship, only transactions and cold, hard numbers. When she saw me holding my daughter, singing a song, or getting frustrated over homework, she was seeing something novel, precious, something she had never experienced. So she expressed her admiration in the only way she knew how, with money and power. She thought she was making a kind gesture. To me, it was an invasion. We were separated by a chasm of wealth and class, so deep it was impossible to cross. The atmosphere in the cafe grew heavy. Ms. Pierce, I softened my tone. Feelings aren't a business deal. You can't just invest capital and expect a return. A relationship between people requires sincerity. Sincerity? She repeated the word as if learning it from a foreign language textbook. What is that? Her question stumped me. How do you explain sincerity to someone who has never felt it? It's me tucking my daughter in at night. I struggled to explain. It's me tying my son's shoes. It's making them dinner. That's sincerity. Catherine watched me, her gaze flickering with something new. I see, she said suddenly. I need to experience this. Experience? Yes. She stood up looking down at me, her imperious CEO aura returning in full force. Now, from this day forward, I am moving into your apartment. Felt my entire worldview being ground into dust. Are you deaf? I told you I don't want your money. I practically hissed. This is not about money, Catherine said, her expression perfectly serious. This is the cost of the experience. I need to observe and learn what sincerity is at close range. It is the most efficient method. Without giving me a chance to argue, she turned and walked away. At the door, she paused and looked back. By the way, that riding crop? I've had my assistant change the stones to blue diamonds. I think blue suits your personality better. I sat there alone in the coffee shop, my world spinning. Of course, there was no way I was letting her move in. That same day, I called a real estate agent and put my apartment on the market. If you can't beat them, run. The agent was enthusiastic, promising me a quick sale. Don't you worry, Leo. Great location, great layout. I'll have a buyer for you in 3 days, guaranteed. 3 days passed. Not a single person came to see the place. I called the agent. He sounded like he was on the verge of tears. Leo, I don't get it. I've listed it on every platform, but I haven't gotten a single inquiry. It's like the place is haunted. A terrible feeling crept over me. I opened my phone. A new message from Catherine. Try to run. Those 3 words sent a chill down my spine. I checked the records. There have been 0 sales in your complex for the past 6 months. That's because I bought every single unit that was for sale. Don't waste your energy, Leo. In this city, if I don't want you to leave, you can't. I slammed my phone face down on the table. This woman was a demon. I was under house arrest, trapped by an invisible force I couldn't fight. I started losing sleep. I began to wonder if my entire life was some elaborate reality TV show, and Catherine was the executive producer holding the remote control. Just when I was about to have a complete breakdown, something happened that changed everything. My ex-wife, Jessica, was back in the country. We divorced for a simple reason. She thought I lacked ambition, that I was content with our small life, and that I couldn't give her the world she wanted. After the divorce, she took her settlement money, married some wealthy expat, and moved overseas. For 2 years, she'd shown almost no interest in the kids. A video call was a rare event. This time, she showed up in my office. Leo, we need to talk, she said, still carrying that same air of superiority, dressed in designer clothes and flawless makeup. We have nothing to talk about, I said coldly. It's about custody of the children. She dropped the bombshell. I believe they would have a better future with me. I've already enrolled them in a private school abroad. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Jessica, on what grounds? Have you acted like a mother for a single day in the last 2 years? I'm doing this for their own good, she said, completely shameless. Look at you. Still the same old you, just a lowly programmer. What kind of future can you offer them? With you, they'll only ever be average. What's wrong with being average? Everything, she snapped. I will not let my children lose at the starting line. We parted on bad terms, but I knew Jessica. When she wanted something, she didn't give up. A few days later, I was served with court papers. She was officially suing for full custody. My lawyer reviewed my case, his expression grim. Mr. Parker, this doesn't look good for you. Her financial situation is vastly superior to yours, and she can offer the children better educational opportunities. When making a ruling, the judge will prioritize the environment that is most beneficial for the children's development. My heart sank. I couldn't lose Leo and Anna. They were my entire world. For days, I was in a daze. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. When I tried to work, all I could see were my kids' faces. I even started to think that maybe if I accepted Catherine's help, I could win this fight. I immediately crushed the thought. I couldn't sell my soul just to keep my kids. Friday night, I was sitting on the sofa, drinking alone in the dark. The doorbell rang. I figured it was a food delivery and stumbled to the door. Standing on my doorstep was Catherine. She was wearing simple, casual clothes and holding a thermal container. She looked at me, her brow furrowed slightly. You've been drinking. None of your business, I grumbled, trying to shut the door. She blocked it with one hand, surprisingly strong. She slipped inside and placed the container on the dining table. I had my chef make you some soup, she said, her eyes scanning my messy apartment, her frown deepening. I heard about your situation. You heard? Of course you did. The great Catherine Pierce knows everything. I slurred sarcastically. She ignored my tone and just looked at me, her expression serious. Do you need my help? No. I turned my head away. I've reviewed your ex-wife's file. She continued as if I hadn't spoken. Her new husband was investigated for business fraud last month. His company is on the verge of bankruptcy. She didn't come back for the children. She came back for you. I whipped my head around to face her. For me? Yes. Catherine's gaze was steady. She found out through certain channels that the CEO of Apex Group has taken an interest in a man named Leo Parker. She thinks you've landed a sugar mama, and she wants a piece of the pie. The information was so overwhelming it sobered me up halfway. She thinks we're... Yes, Catherine nodded. She thinks we're in that kind of relationship. So she plans to use the children as leverage to extort money from you, or rather, from me. A wave of nausea washed over me. To use her own children for money. I can make her disappear from your life, and your children's lives, forever, Catherine said, her eyes cold with resolve. You just have to say the word. I looked at her, a storm of emotions churning inside me. This woman had bulldozed her way into my life, turning it completely upside down. But now, in my darkest, most desperate moment, she was the one offering me a lifeline. I was silent for a long time. I don't want to do it that way. I finally said, my voice hoarse. She's still their mother. I don't want my kids to grow up knowing their mother was a horrible person. I wasn't just trying to protect my custody. I was trying to protect the last shred of a positive image my children had of their mother. Catherine watched me, and for the first time, her expression held an emotion I could actually recognize. It was something like approval and admiration. Understand, she nodded. Then we'll do it your way. My way, as it turned out, meant fighting the custody battle fair and square. Catherine didn't offer to use her money or power to make the problem go away, but she did provide me with a legal team. The lead attorney, Marcus Thorne, was the best divorce lawyer in the country, with a reputation for never losing a case. The first time we met, he placed a thick binder on the table in front of me. Mr. Parker, Ms. Pierce asked us to prepare this. It's a complete record of everything you have done as the sole caregiver for your children over the past 2 years. I opened it and stared in disbelief. The level of detail was terrifying. It listed what time I woke up to make breakfast each day, the menus, how many times a week I took the kids to the park, and for how long, records of the sick days I took to stay home with them. There was even an audio file of me singing that off-key lullaby to Anna. How did you get all this? From the beginning, Ms. Pierce instructed us to document your daily life as a father. Without intruding, Marcus explained, adjusting his glasses. She said this was evidence of sincerity. I looked through the pages, a strange feeling welling up inside me. The woman I had written off as a psycho had, without my knowledge, been meticulously documenting my love for my children. On the day of the hearing, Jessica's lawyer aggressively laid out all my disadvantages. My client, Ms. Jessica Miller, can provide the children with an elite international education, with tuition fees of hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. The defendant, Mr. Leo Parker, is a simple programmer with a limited income, who can only afford to send the children to a public kindergarten. Your Honor, is it not obvious which environment is more conducive to a child's success? Jessica sat across from me, a confident smirk on her face. Then it was Marcus Thorne's turn. He didn't dispute their financial advantage. Instead, he calmly presented the thick binder to the judge. Your Honor, we do not deny the plaintiff's financial superiority. However, is money all a child needs to thrive? This file documents every small act of love my client, Mr. Parker, has performed for his children over the past 730 days. He has made them 1,460 unique breakfasts. He has read them over 600 bedtime stories. When they were sick, he took a total of 27 days off work to be by their side at the hospital, never leaving them for a moment. And the plaintiff, Ms. Miller? In those same 730 days, she made 12 video calls to her children for a total combined duration of less than 1 hour. She has not attended a single parent-teacher conference. She has not been present for a single one of their birthdays. Marcus's voice echoed, clear and powerful, through the courtroom. Material wealth is important, but it is the companionship and love of a parent that are the truly essential elements for a child's growth. Money can buy a spot in a prestigious school, but it cannot buy a father's presence in the middle of the night. Money can buy expensive toys, but it cannot buy the warmth of a father's embrace. My client may not be wealthy, but he has given his children everything a father can possibly give, all of his love. And that is something no amount of money can ever measure. I looked at Marcus, my eyes stinging. His words had validated every ounce of my struggle, my sacrifice, my unwavering dedication over the past 2 years. The color drained from Jessica's face. The judge slowly turned the pages of the file, his expression growing more and more serious. The final verdict was no surprise. The judge denied Jessica's petition, and I retained full custody of my children. Walking out of the courthouse, the sun felt warm on my face. The weight that had been crushing my chest for months was finally gone. Jessica ran up behind me, her face twisted in an ugly snarl. "Leo, you've been with that Pierce woman all along, haven't you? You think you won? You're nothing but her little pet." I stopped and turned to face her. "You're wrong, Jessica. I'm not with anyone. I'm just a father who is trying his best to love his kids. That's all." With that, I turned my back on her hysterical screaming and walked away. A black Maybach was parked silently at the curb. The window rolled down, revealing Catherine's cool, composed face. She was wearing a beige trench coat today, which softened her usual sharp edges. "Get in," she said. I hesitated for a second, then opened the door. The car was silent. She didn't speak, just handed me a bottle of water. "Thank you," I said quietly. It was the first time I had ever said those words to her, and truly meant them. "Don't mention it," she said, her eyes fixed on the road ahead. I was merely making an investment in a worthwhile project. My instincts, as always, proved to be correct. I looked at her profile, perfectly defined in the afternoon light. And for the first time, I thought that maybe, just maybe, this woman wasn't so terrible after all. After the lawsuit, my life finally returned to normal. Jessica never bothered me again. I heard her husband's company went bankrupt, and she had her own mountain of legal troubles to deal with. And Catherine, across the way, seemed to have calmed down too. She no longer spied on me every day, and the bizarre gifts stopped coming. She would just, occasionally, send a normal text message. "The weather is nice today. Good for taking the children to the botanical garden." The new animated movie has a high rating. She was like a clumsy beginner, carefully trying to engage in normal social interaction with me. Sometimes I would reply with a thanks, and sometimes I wouldn't reply at all. But I could feel the defensive walls I had built around myself starting to crumble. I began to realize that there was never any real malice behind her invasions. She was just expressing a clumsy sort of kindness in a completely warped way. She was like a child who owned all the candy in the world but didn't know how to share a single piece, so she just pushed the entire factory at you instead. That weekend, I took the kids to an amusement park. While we were on the carousel, I saw a familiar figure. Catherine. She was standing alone, outside the ride's barrier, quietly watching us. She was wearing an adult-sized version of the same princess dress my daughter Anna had on. The sight was so absurd, yet tinged with a profound loneliness. Anna spotted her too, pointing a little finger. "Daddy, look, that lady has the same dress as me." Catherine looked flustered and started to turn away. On an impulse I couldn't explain, I waved at her. She froze, staring at me. When the carousel stopped, I picked up Anna, took Leo's hand, and walked over to her. "Ms. Pierce, fancy seeing you here," I said. "It wasn't by chance," she answered honestly. "I followed you." "Right? Still the same old Catherine." "Hello, lady." Anna and Leo chirped politely. Catherine looked at the two kids, her expression stiff. She seemed to be trying to smile, but it wasn't working. Instead, she took two enormous teddy bears from assistants standing behind her, bears that were practically half the size of my children, and handed them over. "For you." The kids staggered under the weight of the bears, looking completely baffled. I sighed and took the bears from them. "Thank you. But next time you don't have to get ones that are quite so big." "Bigger provides a greater sense of security," she replied matter-of-factly. For the rest of the afternoon, the four of us formed a strange little group. I played with the kids, and Catherine followed a few steps behind us. She didn't talk, didn't join in. She just watched. When I bought ice cream, I bought an extra cone and handed it to her. She paused for a second, then took it and ate it in tiny, deliberate bites, more carefully than Anna did. When we went on the bumper cars, Leo insisted on riding with her. She sat there, stiff as a board, while Leo spun the steering wheel wildly, sending their car careening into everyone else and drawing a chorus of good-natured complaints. Watching her look so completely out of her depth, I couldn't help but smile. So, the queen of the corporate world had her weaknesses after all. As evening fell, we headed for the parking lot. "Leo," Catherine said suddenly. "Yeah." "Why? Why did you wave at me earlier?" she asked, a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. I looked at her for a moment, then said, "Because Anna said you looked pretty in a princess dress." A blush crept up Catherine's neck, spreading across her face until it reached the tips of her ears. She spun around, her back to me, her voice tight. Nonsense. Looking at her flustered retreat, I let out a genuine, heartfelt laugh for the first time. After the amusement park, our relationship entered a strange, new phase. She was no longer the all-seeing watcher, and I was no longer the cornered prey. We were more like neighbors. Very, very strange neighbors. She would come over for dinner under the guise of studying local customs, then deliver a critique of my home, cooking worthy of a Michelin star reviewer. This tomato and scrambled egg dish achieves a perfect balance between the acidity of the tomato and the richness of the egg. However, the texture would be far more decadent if you had used heirloom eggs from a free-range farm in Vermont. Could you just speak English? It's good. She would play with the kids, but always in a very Catherine way. When Anna wanted to play house and asked her to be the mommy, she immediately had her assistant deliver a miniature, solid gold cooking set. When Leo wanted to build with blocks, she bought a controlling stake in the toy company and had their lead designer come over for a play date. The kids, of course, adored her. She was like a magical genie who could make all their wildest dreams come true. And me, I got used to her being around. I got used to coming home from work and finding her on my couch, critically analyzing cartoons. I got used to setting an extra place at the dinner table. I got used to her silently handing me that little blue diamond riding crop whenever I was scolding the kids. Not that I ever used it. I started to see that beneath the Forbes Queen exterior, Catherine was actually a very simple person. So simple, she was almost inept. She didn't understand social cues, didn't know how to express her feelings, didn't have a clue what a normal life looked like. She was like an alien who had landed on Earth, and I was her reluctant tour guide. I taught her how to use grocery store apps to find coupons, how to tell the difference between soy sauce and tamari, and how, when a child is crying, you give them a hug, not a check. She was a very diligent student, though she usually failed spectacularly. The first time she tried to go grocery shopping on her own, she got lost and the store manager had to personally drive her home in a golf cart. The first time she tried to cook, she nearly set my kitchen on fire. The three of us ended up staring at a blackened, unidentifiable lump on a plate that she called her creation. Anna, bless her heart, took one bite and burst into tears. "Auntie Catherine, your food tastes worse than Daddy's slippers." Catherine's face fell. It was the first time I had ever seen an expression of pure dejection on her. Looking at her, I felt a strange mix of pity and amusement. I sighed, took the plate of dark matter, scraped it into the trash, and gently took the spatula from her hand. "Watch closely. This is how you make scrambled eggs." That night, she stood behind me, watching me chop, whisk, and cook. The kitchen light was warm, and the fan hummed overhead. The air was thick with the scent of home. Suddenly, she wrapped her arms around me from behind, resting her head against my back. I froze. Her voice was muffled against my shirt. "Leo, I think I'm starting to like it here." I didn't say anything. I just turned up the heat under the pan. The eggs sizzled, echoing the frantic beating of my heart. I thought things might just continue like that, in a strange, comfortable new normal. Then my mom called. "Leo, you be honest with me. Are you seeing someone?" "No, Mom, of course not." "Don't you lie to me. Your neighbors told me there's a girl who looks like a movie star coming to your apartment every day. What's she seeing you, huh? That you're old? That you don't shower?" "Mom, I shower every day." "I don't care. You bring her home for me to meet next weekend. If you don't, I'm coming over there myself." She hung up before I could protest. I stood there, phone in hand, my head spinning. How was I supposed to explain Catherine to my mother? That she was my live-in life experience consultant? My mom would kill me. I told Catherine about the call. She listened, thought for a moment, then looked at me with unnerving seriousness. Meeting the parents is a critical step in formalizing a relationship. What preparations are required? "We're not in that kind of relationship," I said weakly. "From a sociological perspective, our current state aligns with the definition of a pre-committed romantic partnership," she said, pulling up some analytical report on her phone. "The data shows we share over 10 meals per week, spend more than 20 hours in private proximity, and have engaged in physical contact. For example, the hug in the kitchen." I stared at her, completely unable to refute her insane, logical-sounding nonsense. "Therefore," she concluded, "meeting your mother is the next logical step." In the end, I couldn't win the argument. Or maybe Deep down, I wanted to see what would happen when the alien Catherine entered my mother's very normal, very human world. That weekend, I drove my 10-year-old sedan with Catherine and the two kids in the back to my mom's house. Catherine had swapped her designer clothes for a simple sundress I'd bought for her online for $39, free shipping. She called it cultural immersion. But with her face and her posture, she could have been wearing a burlap sack, and it would have looked like couture. We pulled up to my mom's building, an old, slightly worn-down apartment complex. Catherine got out and looked around at the peeling paint and clotheslines hung with laundry, her eyes wide with curiosity. "The architecture here has a rich historical texture," she commented. I followed her, my arms loaded with the gift she had insisted on bringing, my eye twitching. It was a crate of solid gold, apples. Each one was heavy and gleamed in the sunlight. "Catherine, I told you, my mom doesn't like flashy things. This is a sincere gesture," she insisted. "Gold is a stable asset. It represents the solidity of my intentions." I gave up. My mom threw the door open and greeted us with a huge smile. When she saw Catherine, her jaw dropped. She was speechless for a full 10 seconds. "Oh my goodness, dear, you are just beautiful," my mom finally gushed, taking Catherine's hands. Then she saw the crate of golden apples in my hands, and her smile froze. "What in the world is that?" "Hello, Mom. My name is Catherine. This is just a little something for you," Catherine said politely. My mom picked up one of the golden apples, weighed it in her hand, then, to my horror, bit into it. A perfect set of teeth marks appeared on its surface. My mom's eyes lit up like a Christmas tree. "Oh, honey, you're just too much. You shouldn't have." Her entire demeanor changed. In that moment, I realized that my mother and Catherine were, in some fundamental way, the exact same kind of person. They both had a deep, unwavering appreciation for stable assets. Dinner was surprisingly peaceful. My mom kept piling food onto Catherine's plate until it was a small mountain. And Catherine, to her credit, ate everything without a hint of complaint, her movements still graceful and precise. After dinner, my mom pulled Catherine aside, and they whispered conspiratorially. All I could see was my mom talking excitedly and Catherine nodding seriously. When Catherine came back, she handed me a debit card. "What's this?" I asked. "It's from your mother. My mom gave this to you." "Yes." She said it was a welcome to the family gift, and that I should take good care of you from now on. What kind of magic spell had she cast on my mother? After the visit to my mom's, Catherine became even more brazen. She started introducing herself as my fiancée. When my coworkers found out, they were floored. They could not wrap their heads around how the untouchable woman on the cover of every business magazine had ended up with a boring programmer like me. All I could do was offer them an awkward smile. Catherine, meanwhile, staked her claim in her own way. The afternoon snack at the office was upgraded from cheap coffee and donuts to a fully catered dessert bar from a 5-star hotel. The annual company retreat went from a day trip to a local state park to an all-expenses-paid week in the Maldives. And it was all done in the name of Leo Parker's fiancée. I became the office hero. I tried to talk to her about toning it down. "I don't want to be known as some kept man who lives off you," I said. She looked at me, unfazed. "You eat my food, use my things, and live in a building I developed. Are you not, by definition, living off me?" I was speechless. "Besides," she said, stepping closer and touching my cheek, "I find the term kept man, when applied to you, to be a compliment. It proves my investment was a sound one." Her fingertips were cool, but her gaze was hot. As I looked in her eyes, so close to mine, my heart skipped a beat. I had to admit it. I think I was actually falling for this completely insane, logic-obsessed woman. I loved watching her seriously study grocery store coupons. I loved watching her get flustered and confused when the kids ganged up on her. I loved watching her, in the privacy of my home, let down all her guards and just be her true, awkward self. This feeling was like a vine, slowly but surely wrapping itself around my heart. One night, I worked late and came home to find the living room light still on. Catherine, Leo, and Anna were all curled up together on the sofa, fast asleep. A cartoon was still playing on the TV. On the coffee table was a plate of food for me, covered to keep it warm. I walked over, turned off the TV, and picked up a blanket to cover them. The moment I got close, Catherine's eyes snapped open. Her senses were sharp, even in sleep. "You're home," she whispered, her voice husky. "Yeah, why are you guys sleeping out here?" "Anna said she wanted to wait up for you," she mumbled, rubbing her eyes. I looked at my two sleeping kids, a warmth spreading through my chest. I bent down to pick Anna up and carry her to bed. Catherine's hand shot out and grabbed my arm. "Lau." She looked up at me, her eyes dark and deep in the dim light. "Let's get married." I froze. Based on all available data models, our current relationship has entered a stable phase suitable for marriage. Furthermore, marriage provides the most secure environment for raising children. From both an emotional and a practical standpoint, this is the optimal course of action. She was back to her data analysis. I looked at her, and a slow smile spread across my face. "Catherine, yes. Is that really how you propose to someone?" She blinked, as if reevaluating her process. Should I not have presented a cost-benefit analysis first? "No," I said, shaking my head. I leaned in closer, looking directly into her eyes. "You should ask me, Leo, will you marry me?" Catherine's breath hitched. Her face, illuminated by the moonlight filtering through the window, slowly turned pink. She stared at me, her lips parting slightly. It took a long moment before she finally whispered the words, "Leo, will you marry me?" Looking at her, so nervous and hopeful, the softest part of my heart felt like it had been hit by a tidal wave. I leaned down and kissed her. "Yes." Her body went rigid, like a robot that had been powered down. Then, just as I was about to pull away, she threw her arms around my neck and kissed me back, clumsily but fiercely. Outside, the moon was bright. Inside, the sound of our children's soft, even breathing, was the most beautiful music I had ever heard. My life, the computer that had crashed so many times, was finally rebooting, and it seemed to have gotten a major system upgrade. Our wedding was small. No press, just our closest friends and family. My mom held Catherine's hands and cried, repeating over and over, "My son is so lucky, my son is so lucky." Catherine just stood there awkwardly, handing my mom an endless supply of tissues. Leo and Anna were the ring bearer and flower girl, dressed in a tiny tuxedo and a little white dress, scattering petals down the aisle. I stood at the altar, watching Catherine walk toward me in a simple, elegant white gown. She was smiling, a shy, gentle expression I had never seen on her face before. In that moment, I felt like I had everything in the world. Married life was quiet, but full of unexpected surprises. For instance, I noticed the balance in my bank account was growing exponentially every day. I asked Catherine about it. She was doing a face mask while reading a quarterly report and didn't even look up. "Oh, that's your allowance." I had the finance department set up an automatic transfer. Every day, they calculate your total spending, multiply it by 100, and deposit it back into your account. So this was what it felt like to have a 10,000% cashback reward. Then, Anna's kindergarten suddenly announced it was being expanded into a 15-year K-12 elite private academy. At the parent-teacher conference, the director emotionally announced, "We owe all of this to our great benefactor, Ms. Catherine Pierce, and to her wonderful husband, Mr. Leo Parker." I wanted to sink through the floor as all the other parents stared at me with expressions of awe and reverence. Catherine leaned over and whispered, "Now you won't have to worry about Anna's college applications." I looked at her, feeling a mix of warmth and exasperation. She was still the same Catherine, always expressing her love in the most domineering way possible. But I was changing her, too. She was learning to laugh, to hug, to say "I love you." She was no longer the untouchable queen, but my wife and the kids. Mama Cat. Our life was filled with ordinary moments and an extraordinary amount of money. Sometimes I still felt like I was living in a dream. One night, as we were lying in bed, she asked me, "Leo, do you ever have any regrets?" "Regret what?" "Regretting meeting me." I rolled over and pulled her into my arms. "Never," I said, kissing her forehead. "But sometimes I do wonder, if I weren't me, would you still have fallen for me?" She was silent for a long time. Then she looked up at me, her gaze terrifyingly sincere. "Yes." "Why?" "Because," she said softly, "that day in the parents' WhatsApp group, when everyone else was silent, you were the only one there clumsily trying to find help for your children. In that moment, it was like I saw a light. I froze. So it wasn't the off-key lullaby or the apron I wore. It was in that cold, impersonal chat log, my most basic, most humble instinct as a father. That light had illuminated her lonely world. And in the end, it lit up my ordinary life. Bonus scene, 6 months later. I was at the coffee shop downstairs from the office, going over a project with a new colleague. Her name was Emily, a sweet girl just out of college. We were laughing about something when my phone buzzed. It was a picture message from an unknown number. I opened it. It was a photo of me and Emily talking and smiling in the coffee shop. The angle was from across the street. Beneath the photo was a single line of text. Her smile lines are 0.3 millimeters deeper than yours. She is not a suitable match. I looked up across the street. A familiar black Maybach was parked quietly in the shade. The window was half down, and for a split second, I saw a flash of red. I looked down at the message, then across at my innocent colleague, and let out a long sigh. A smile I couldn't control spread across my face. I replied to the text. Message received, "Honey, I'm on my way home.